Hello again, and welcome to another edition of Talking Devils. I'm glad to be joined once again from all the way across the other side of this galaxy, in Australia, no less. Again, he's been living out there for a little bit now, playing for Wellington Phoenix in the A League. Former Manchester United and Leeds defender.
Good introduction.
Yeah, I'll try to leave that bit out, yeah, but I'll edit it. How are you doing today, Scott?
Yes, so good, mate. Very well. Just a bit gloomy here over in Sydney, actually, so it's not the greatest weather, but can't complain, mate. Really enjoying the start to life I've made over here, and obviously trying to keep up to date with all the stuff going on with the time differences and that, and I'm trying to do my best. But no, really enjoying it, and life's very good at the minute. How about yourself?
Well, before we do that, the main reason we're actually coming on today is because, we had a rumor that you're storming up the goal scoring charts in the A League.
He's gone and bought the flower, I've heard.
The Cristiano Ronaldo of the A League, we believe. You got your first goal. Only 2 games in, so you've a record of a goal every other game, which is better than a lot of strikers. How do you feel? What was that like?
Yeah, no, it was great. It was against Brisbane Roar. We're a big club over here, quite a historic club. And we started really well. Scores from a corner. So Man United haven't, obviously, the first one they got in a long time as well.
There we go.
Really good delivery into the back post. It was something we'd actually worked on, to be fair. So I would give a lot of credit to the assistant manager of the team who's in charge of the set pieces. It was exactly off the training ground, as people say. And, I was just thankfully to be in the right place and connect well with the header, and it put us 1-0 up, actually, and it sort of changed the momentum in the game. That we were under the cosh a little bit at the time, and I think the goal just knocked the stuffing out of them a little bit, and obviously gave us the impetus in the game to go on and win 3-0. So that was an important goal, and like I say, I'm delighted to the start I've made over here.
Yeah, you seem to be settling in very, very well in there. I know you're upset about all the sunny weather that you're having to endure while everyone else back in the UK. I mean, I'm in California, so I'm with you.
All right.
We're fine. So yeah, I know it. I mean, the weather is a big help, but I'm glad you're settling in. It was great to see you get your first goal. I think it was on here at like near midnight here, but I kept the TV down low and the wife wasn't banging on the floor, so I was glad to see you get that goal. So
I love the commitment.
Congratulations. So at least we're talking about something good here. We had a result against Brighton, but I really want to talk about Manchester United versus Leeds, which was at the weekend, 4-2 at Ellen Road. Scott, you played for both Manchester United and for Leeds, so you're more well versed in this than most people we know. So for me, the game, it just felt different. Whether it was the atmosphere, whether it was the rain, whether it was there was a lot of crunching tackles. There was goals at obviously 6 goals in total. Manchester United 2-0 up, went back to 2-2, and I'm thinking, here we go again. Second half, typical as well. Manchester United these days seem to just not turn up in the second half in a lot of games, whereas under Ole it was the opposite. So I'm thinking, can we have a manager for each half? Maybe we'll have Rangnick for the first half and Ole for the second half. But to me, it felt like a really, really, it just, even though you win and that adds to it, there was something different about that game. And we all know that Manchester United really only have 2 rivalries in England, and that's Leeds and that's Liverpool. They're the 2. For me, they're the 2. You have your Cities, your Chelseas, your Arsenal. Doesn't really matter. Liverpool have Manchester United and Everton. No one else comes near that. No Chelsea, no City, no nothing, regardless of what's happening in the past 10 years. So for me, I was kind of happy to see Leeds come up because I knew we would get good games against them. But this game just felt very, very different. As I said, a lot of crunching tackles. The referee, for the most part, did okay, let it flow. But it just felt like a good old game from like the mid-90s, a Roy Keane, David Batty type of scenario, type of game. What did you think of the game? I mean, I know it's on very weird times over there, but what did you think? I mean, 2-0 down, 2-2, 4-2.
It was a great game. If anyone was watching from a neutral perspective, I'm sure. When there's 2 quick goals in any game like that, it just completely swings the momentum in the match. And any neutral would have been looking at it thinking, "I'll tell you what, I fancy Leeds now." That shift in confidence it can give you when you come out 2-0 down, and then all of a sudden within it was 10 minutes, wasn't it? You know, you're 2-2 and you've got so much of the game left and you feel like you've got the impetus and you've got the momentum. You know, I'm sure they would have fancied the chances massively, but you'd have to give massive credit really to the Man United players, because that is on the other side of that, that's a huge shock to the system. You know, you've had a good first half, you're 2-0 up. You know, you'd be feeling that you're in control of the game. You don't have to go and chase the game because you're 2-0 up, and then all of a sudden, bang, within, you know, a couple of minutes, you're 2-2, and the atmosphere, like you say, you know, I feel like I'm in a good experienced place to be able to give a good view on what, especially the Leeds United fans, will be feeling going into that game. I'm pretty sure the game last year was behind closed doors, obviously because of COVID, and I'm telling you now, that would have been the biggest game in their fans' lives for probably since they've been out of the Premier League, I believe, because they missed the playoff games last year. Not the playoff games, sorry, the final games after COVID when it resumed. Sorry, when they got promoted. Sorry, my bad. Obviously, last year was a funny year for fans in general, and I'm telling you now, that game, Ellen Road, full house, welcoming Man United. Because when I joined Leeds, I think we spoke about this in the past, I knew there was a rivalry, but because Leeds had been in the Championship and League One, and when I was at Man United, that's the level they played at. I never went to it. You only played each other once in the FA Cup, which obviously we won't discuss. But the Leeds United, they were obsessed. They had an obsession with Man United. I can remember times where, you know, on the Tarot, when they'd read out all the results from England and they'd go through League Two, League One, Premier League, and Man United were getting beat. It was like Leeds had scored. They were so, the rivalry, that would be Leeds United's biggest rivalry by a mile. So the atmosphere would have been electric. I think the weather helped the tempo of the game. It was fast, like you said. It was tackles. There was counter attacks. It was end to end. Bums would have been off the seats of the supporters. So I think you'd have to give huge credit for Man United players to keep the composure in that, because that place would have been rocking when it got back to 2-2. I can assure you of that. Like I say, you know, I've been there, played there. So huge credits, great composure, good quality as well. You know, 2 really good goals. And I think for Leeds, you know, everyone raves about the running power and the energy of Leeds. Some of Man United's breakaways, the energy the players shown to get up into the box and outnumber Leeds on the counter attack was, you know, they deserve huge credit for that. And maybe that's finally Ralph Rangnick's sort of, you know, famous training regime or methods. You know, we don't know what he's doing on the training pitch, but maybe, just maybe, we're starting to see them coming into play.
Is it? I remember when Jurgen Klopp brought this type of football to Liverpool, where it was constant attack, pressure. You know, and for the first couple of seasons, they were getting picked off every other week. But he kept with it, you know, And I remember having conversations with some good friends back home in Ireland, some, you know, really long-time Liverpool fans. And I'm saying the problem with playing that way is you have to have the players, you know, and that could take a long time. It could take 5-6 transfer windows to get all those players in those places. How tough is it to try and keep that tempo going for even 60, 70, 80 minutes? Because what I'm seeing with Manchester United now is, we spoke just before the show there, our first 45 these days have been really good, and then we kind of just run out of steam. Is this a case whereby Rangnick has a plan? He knows, you know, this is going to take maybe a year to really come into fruition, and I have to buy certain other players to make this happen. As a professional footballer yourself, I mean, can you buy into that? Can you buy into the, hey, listen, there's no such thing as conserving energy. We just want to go. How difficult is that to sustain that over 90 minutes?
Well, it is very difficult. Some people would say it's impossible to play with that much energy and that much pressing constantly for 90 minutes. You know, you watch Liverpool sometimes there, but that, I think they've now mastered the time where they have a bit of a break and they get everyone behind the ball and they give no space to the opposition. And then they pick the moments when the guy, like you say, that's took Jurgen Klopp. It probably took him 2 or 3 years before he sort of got his team into the Champions League final. And the point you make, Dave, about managers, listen, I'm not a manager. Hopefully one day I'll get into coaching and managing, maybe, who knows. But as a player, I always feel when a manager's so sort of set in his ways, he's got 2 options. If he hasn't got, you know, very rarely when a manager comes into a job, he's got his ideal makeup, as we've seen with, you know, Klopp. Took him 3 or 4 years. Guardiola had to buy 4 full-backs in his first summer. And you've got the players who are there, if the manager is going to be, and that seems to be the way the managers are now, that they've got a way of playing that's worked in the past for them and they're going to stick with it, and it's my way or the highway, so to speak. The players either have to adapt to that very, very quickly, and for some of them, let's say Rangnick, for example, if he wants to press, and the players don't adapt to that and don't do that, then ultimately the way the modern day game is, they're going to be swept aside. Whereas I feel like back in the day, I feel really old saying that, but I feel like managers would have looked at the squad and played the tactics or the shape or the way they want to play evolved around the players they had. Whereas a lot of the modern day thinking and coaching seems to be, this is plan A and we're not going to change. And if the players that can't adapt and change their ways, then I'm going to bring new players in. So like I said, they've got one or two choices. You either think, well, the players I've got can't actually do what I want, so I'm going to have to change things slightly. And even that, knowing that might take, you're going back to sort of starting again. It's like a restart. Yeah. It might take 6 months, a year to do that. So you've took 2 years. Or you say, you pick the phone up to your chairman and you say, listen, I want to sell him, and we need to go and look for, I don't know what it could be, a centre midfielder who can run all day, or a winger who puts 50 crosses into the box, whatever the attributes and the characteristics might be for the style of player that you feel you need for your system. That's what they have to try and do. But he's obviously, the good thing is, for what I like about this is the club have obviously picked a direction where if he doesn't stay, they're not going to bring a completely new manager in who's going to maybe want to play a completely different style or a completely different way. There seems to be a bit of continuity in terms of style and consistency at the club now, which hopefully will can stand them in good stead with the new manager. I know we're slightly split on who we would prefer. I think you prefer Ten Hag. I'd probably prefer Pochettino, but they're probably both of a similar ilk, and whoever, hopefully, if they can land one of them, and with Rangnick in the back, having a very good background of what the players are like in and around the training ground, how they train, the professionalism, what they like, what they can do, what they can't do. Hopefully the club can move forward.
So you spoke earlier on about, and I think it's no great secret that, a manager will come in, and if the players don't buy into it, they could be, cast aside. Are we seeing a bit of this at Manchester United right now? There seems to be a lot of discontent at the club. I know there's a lot of rumours out there, and there's a lot of clickbait stories of just, crazy talk about, Ronaldo asking for the captaincy and taking it off Maguire. That type of stuff, honestly, is just bullshit. But I believe that there is a handful of players at the club that are discontent. I think they just don't want to be there, and it's led to people believing that they just don't want to put in a shift, and that that could somewhat be true. If they don't want to press and change their way to the managers. I mean, are we seeing a little bit of that at Manchester United now, because Rangnick has come in and said, "Hey, I'm not building a team around you. I'm building a team around my idea, and if you don't want to get on board, it's adios."
Yeah, absolutely. I think he seems, obviously, like I say, very strong-willed. He's come from a sort of professor type role where he would have been overseeing other clubs and upstairs, so he'll know exactly what he wants from watching games and training from afar, and then he's hands-on. He'll see even more closely. Obviously, he's a very experienced manager in his own right as well, and like I said earlier, he's obviously seems to be. Although he's maybe tweaked the formation slightly, the style of the press and the high tempo hasn't obviously changed, and that's obviously his way. He's not going to, if that's not worked, he's not going to start saying, right, we're going to sit on the edge of our box and we're going to defend deep, everyone in our own half, and look to counter. That's not what he's done. So he's obviously very strong-minded, and like I said earlier, Guardiola wanted to play the same way he played a similar type of football at Barcelona and Bayern Munich, and when it didn't work for him at City and he didn't win the league, he went out and spent, I think it was 200 million on fullbacks. Klopp, did Coutinho really fit into Klopp's way? He was probably Liverpool's best player. Maybe not in terms of the high tempo pressing. Listen, he was an unbelievable player, but he might not have fitted in slightly, and they got a price that was too good to turn down, so they moved him on. Did Liverpool try an arm and a leg to get Coutinho back for a snippet of the price they sold him for? I didn't hear any rumours. If he had a choice between Aston Villa and Liverpool, even though we're you go to Liverpool. So I think that is like I say, it's the modern day manager. It's my way. This is how I've done it. It's worked in the past. Rangnick's obviously had success not winning leagues because he hasn't managed the stature the club to go and win leagues, but I know he's had success at the clubs he's been at. It's the way he believes in. We heard when he first came the likes of Klopp and Tuchel and these managers, how they speak of him. They talk so highly of him. So it's why would he change if he's had success? That's the way of thinking, really, I think, from these managers. Tuchel's another great example of coming into Chelsea and it's my way or the highway, and they obviously bought into it and they had great success last season winning the Champions League. So yeah, that's definitely the way that he's obviously gone. German people, I think, in general, are quite very strong-minded.
Yep.
Don't take any messing. So
it is. I honestly believe, with a lot of German people and with German coaches, it's black or white. That's it.
Yeah.
You either get on board or you get out. That's just the way it's going to be. And I do believe there's going to be a big clear out. I know we got a couple of players that are already out of contract, so like they'll move on anyway. I think we know that.
Original question, Dave, I went a bit off topic there, talking about the managers again, but I think that naturally brings, there'll be some players who they are not the strengths of what the manager wants. So when you know that and you're not really getting picked, then you're thinking what I'm good at isn't really going to fit into this manager's thinking. That automatically brings it's not really working for me here. And then when you're not going to play, listen, I'm sure you've heard, everyone hears stories of when you're playing every week, the manager's great and everyone's happy. And then when you're not playing, the manager's rubbish and training's rubbish. And so the players who won't fit into the manager's thinking naturally, and all football clubs will give a slight dislike or discontent, and they'll be onto the agents and journalists. Oh no, this is happening, that's happening. So that's just natural. And because again, we spoke before, because it's Man United, it gets times by 100.
Yep.
So everyone wants a story, everyone wants to leak everything to the newspaper. So,
and that's the unfortunate part about all this. It's kind of hard to filter out what is real and what's not. But I think there's a lot of stuff that's gone on in the past few months that is, it's just not believable. But unfortunately, we have a social media audience that would swallow a brick, and it's just one of those things where you've got to just either ignore it or scroll past it. Scott, I wanted to talk a little bit about over the past couple of weeks, I've had this, let's say, discussion with some Manchester United players. I've definitely seen a lot of positives over the past month. We're creating more chances. We're just not putting them away. Defensively, we're doing better. We are still making one or two silly mistakes. But if I've been asked, has there been an improvement from a month ago to now? I would say definitely yes, 100%. I do believe that because we're creating a lot more chances. We're just not putting the ball in the back of the net. That said, we go to Leeds, we put 4 in the back of the net. The question I have is, you think putting 4 in the back of the net against Leeds is kind of like okay, we're clicking now and we're starting to score goals. Jadon Sancho is literally on fire at the moment. Yeah. Or is it a case that when Leeds get beat, they normally get spanked, so we can't really use that as a barometer? So do you think that we have improved? We obviously are creating a lot more chances. Jadon Sancho is being on fire, as I said recently. Or do you think it's just a situation whereby when Leeds seem to get beat, they seem to get beat badly? It's never it's I won't say it's never 1 or 2-0, but they do concede a lot of goals.
Yeah, no, I think it's an accumulation of. I don't think it's ever one thing. I think Man United have definitely improved. I think you're right, because if they hadn't have improved, I think that sort of 3-4 weeks after Rangnick took the job, I think they could have lost that game or got beaten through that game. Yeah. So I think they have improved. I think Leeds, again, going back to what we spoke about in terms of what the manager wants, he is super stubborn, and he never ever changes the way he plays. So the plus side of that is, they can go and score 2 goals in 2 minutes if they put the chances away, because they could create, because they are man for man, full belts, 100 miles an hour. Yeah. And the flip side of that is they can concede 4 goals. They'll always concede goals. They conceded, was it 6 at Old Trafford, the first game back in the Premier League? That's just the nature of how they play. So I think it's a bit of both. I think, obviously, look, United, you can only beat what's in front of you. United have to take credit. They were clinical, like you said. They put 4 chances away. They scored 4 away from home in a tough environment to play in. So they deserve huge credit for that. But, on the flip side, Leeds on. Obviously, you've got a great record defensively. They're missing some big player. Liam Cooper, the captain's missing for them. He's obviously a big player. But like I say, you can only beat what's in front of you. And I never believe it's just one instance that, right, Man United are better now. Because you still got to play 11 against 11 players. And it's not just how Leeds concede goals. Because United have got to obviously put the chances away. So it's never one thing, and I think they deserve credit for the recent run of form. Because let's be honest, I remember we spoke about how kind the fixture list had been to Rangnick, and early on there was a few sticky results. Norwich away, these places where performances weren't seem to look great. Whereas now, like you say, Sancho's form's picked right up. Ronaldo's scoring goals again. Bruno's looking a lot more lively, back to his old best. So they deserve credit when it's going well.
So, and you also mentioned the fact that, this is Leeds' biggest game in a very, very long time for the fans, as well. And that creates that atmosphere. And, I'm gonna err on the side of, I just think Manchester United are starting to click a little bit. I'm not saying that we're title contenders, but I think, we're in a better position now from a team standpoint than when we were, like, I would say 4 or 6 weeks ago. Scott, I got a couple of questions for you because, like, as we said earlier on, you've played for Manchester United, you've played for Leeds, and we always talk about this rivalry in England, with certain teams. Manchester United, for me, two biggest rivals, Liverpool, Leeds. That's it. Everyone else fails in comparison. Man City, doesn't matter. Next 20, 30 years still won't catch up to what we have between Leeds and Liverpool. So I got this couple of questions that we've asked, our Twitter followers to send a few in, and Mike Pieri has sent in a couple. He said, in regard to the rivalries, how conscious are players of football rivalries? Is there a different understanding of these rivalries between the local lads and those from different parts of the country or the world? It's a great question. And even though even with your time with other English clubs, with Plymouth and with Morecambe and all that, they all have rivals. You know what I mean? They all have derby days. Do the foreign players get it? Do they?
It's not the same. If you sign a player who's just joined the club this season, and you're going to play your local rivals, it's impossible for them to understand it as much as the English players, or like you say, Irish, Scottish players who have grew up in the country and they've watched these games, or they've played in these games at youth level, or they've played in the fixture many times, in the past. I was at Plymouth, we played Exeter. Gary Sawyer had been in the club close to 6-7 years. He played the game nearly 10 times. So it's impossible for a new player from abroad to come in and understand that fixture as much as someone like him. Be like Man United. If Man United signed a player now from South America, he's not going to have a clue about the fixture anywhere near as much as Harry Maguire, who's lived in England. He's a Yorkshire lad. He's obviously from Sheffield.
They don't like him at all.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, it's just impossible. It'd be like if an English player went over to play for Boca Juniors. Yeah, you'd understand the rivalry with River Plate or somebody like that, but it's impossible for you to grasp the scale of it until you go and you see it 2 or 3 times. It's just life, isn't it? I guess. But I think that the coaches and players will make players aware of it, 100%. In the week, I always feel the big games. Obviously you're always aware of the big rivalry games, derby games, when you look at the fixture list, and then as it gets into that month, let's say you have, at Leeds, Man United at the end of the month, and you've always got Leeds in 3 or 4 games. That'll be the bit of talk of the dressing room. And when do we play Leeds? Is it Saturday, Sunday? Is it on telly? All this stuff. But then when you finish the game before it, that's when it really starts will come into the players' heads. United's last game, I think it was Brighton, wasn't it? So after that game finished, they'll come in, they'll do the recovery, they'll get ready for the game, and then it'll be like, right, it's Leeds next. That's when the focus and the attention to the game really, really ramps up. But going back to the question, I just think it's impossible, and it also depends on the player and their character, their personality. Some players, even English players, really, even English coaches, I've had managers who really try and ramp the game up and say, this is a derby game. The fans will be wanting us to win every ball, every tackle. We've got to win this game. Other managers or players will be like, listen, don't get distracted. This is just another game. Just be cold, keep your emotions intact. It's 90 minutes, it's 3 points. You let your performance give the fans what they want, rather than going into the game all hyped up and do something stupid and get sent off. And I've seen both sides of it. I just think the best way to go about it is always with balance. You can't go into a game like that thinking, right, it's Leeds, for example, or it's our local derby. When I was at Leeds, actually, we played a game against Bradford, which they hadn't played the fixture. That was their closest match in terms of proximity. We hadn't played the game because Bradford had dropped down the leagues, and we had a man sent off quite early, and we ended up losing the game because maybe it was the emotion or the atmosphere. The fans just took over. And it's always about, like I said, it's about balance. You've got to remember it is just 3 points. Ultimately, you don't get any more points for beating your local rivals, but at the same time, you've got to understand the passion from the fans, but you can't take that overboard and cost the team a game, because that's all the fans will remember. If you get a big smashing tackle and you get the fans off the seat and they give you a clap, and you get a card and you lose the game, it'll be your fault. So yeah, it's all about balance. You've got to play with a bit more needle and a bit more aggression, but not too much that boils overboard, because ultimately you're playing for 3 points.
So the next question we have in is asking about you as a centre back. It's asking that who would be your preferred centre back pairing at Manchester United right now. Lindelof has seemed to have improved a lot over the past couple of months. Harry Maguire will obviously get absolutely pillared for every mistake he makes. And Varane really hasn't, he's always a safe bet at this moment in time, but I think his form has slightly dipped a bit since he came back from that injury. Who's your ideal partnership at Manchester United right now?
Good question, really, because I would have always just said Varane, absolutely nailed on, because I've always been a huge fan of him. I was actually gutted when he didn't join the club first time around. Maguire's obviously had his, well documented his problems, and I actually think Lindelof, who, when you pick the teams on paper and you look, and I actually think he's been the best out of the three, Dave, to be honest.
And we wouldn't have said 2 months ago, I would have said, you know what, obviously the air pressure down in Australia has affected your head. What's going on here? But I would agree with you. I'm looking at it going, we haven't talked about him, so he's obviously doing good things.
Well, the thing is with that is, that's when, if all them players that have been bought for £10 million each,
we wouldn't be having this discussion.
Yeah, but when you buy Maguire and he's England international and he's captain and he's 80 million, just human nature automatically gives you. You just automatically think, oh well, he's captain. He needs a few more games, and then he's made a mistake in it. He's Harry Maguire, and then when you bring Rafa Varane for a snippet, I believe at the time it was a snippet at 35-40 million. And he's won 4 Champions Leagues, and you've bought him from Real Madrid, and he's won everything. He's won the World Cup. He's probably one of the most decorated players in world football.
And they didn't want to let him go, and I think that's crucial in all this, because Real Madrid don't sell players that they have to sell, and that they don't want to sell, and they didn't want to sell him. He just wanted out. Yeah,
and so when he's not really lighting the world, you're still saying to yourself, yeah, but it's Rafael Varane.
I know.
I think that's just human nature. But like I said, if you had if the players came and it was just a blank sheet of experience and they'd all played, no one had won anything, and you bought them all for the same price, Victor Lindelof would probably, he hasn't put a foot wrong really from what I've seen.
No, I 100% agree with you.
So I would actually probably be playing, if there was a game tomorrow, I would probably go with Lindelof and Varane, just for Maguire's formness. I know he scored from a set piece on in the Leeds game, but I think Varane's got a bit more pace about him, a bit more mobile, a bit more better physicality. And like I say, I think Lindelof hasn't put a foot wrong, and I think Maguire's having a hangover from the Euros. I don't think he's had a good season really.
Yeah.
So I would go with them too if there was a game tomorrow, to answer the question.
Well,
do you agree? Or
no, 100%. So here's the thing. I feel bad for Maguire. I really do.
Yeah, me too.
It's the hope that kills me. It's like he's just going to turn into a Steve Bruce or a Gary Palliser any minute now, and then he just I think the captaincy weighs on him. I think the price tag weighs on him. I just don't believe he's going to improve at this moment in time. I really don't. I think if anything, he's going to maybe just stabilize and be okay. I would, and as luck should have it, we do have a game tomorrow, and we're in Madrid against Atletico Madrid. What a best place to bring Varane back in, Atletico Madrid, a massive rival to Real Madrid. You just said earlier on, that some of these players, when they know that rivalry, they step up their game. I 100% agree with you. It's madness that I'm saying this, but I would have Lindelof would be my first choice right away, because all of a sudden he's become so steady, and I'll be like, okay, so who do I pair him with? For me, I think it comes down to who are we playing. But then, you know, and I'm going to ask you this as a professional footballer. Getting dropped is obviously the worst thing in the world. Harry Maguire has just scored for Manchester United, and you know we're hoping that helps him turn a corner. I mean, if Manchester United drop him now, given the fact that he's the captain of Manchester United, I mean, is it going to have you know an even more negative effect on him?
Yeah, 100%, because it's a bigger call. It's a much bigger call. I've been in teams where players will get dropped for half a mistake because they might not have, you know, all these things come into it. Don't believe on anyone. Maybe not at the top level, because it's all about it. There's too much money involved in terms of winning games, and the success means so much. And then you'll have the captain who can make 3 or 4 mistakes but still get picked, because it's just a bigger call and it will have a bigger effect on the captain. So for him to make a call where you drop Maguire, it's, you know, there's going to be more headlines about it, or captain's dropped, Harry Maguire, England international dropped, and it just creates this more noise around the whole situation. Whereas if you drop Lindelof, again, for the points we've just been making, it's Lindelof. And look, as good a player as he is, he doesn't come with the price tag of the other two, doesn't come with the history or the experience of the other two. But when you look and you just look what goes on from minute 1 to minute 90, at the minute, he's been the most composed, the best player. But there's not enough razzmatazz, or there's not the story around him. You know, it's like Rooney. Whenever Rooney got dropped, it was like, Wayne Rooney, you know, this amazing player, because he comes with, he's got that experience and he's done unbelievable things in the game, like Varane has. And, you know, Maguire, obviously not so much, with the price tag and the captaincy. Then it just becomes a much bigger headline, and that creates pressure on the manager. The player will be thinking, well, yeah, that's a bigger call if he's dropping me and I'm the captain of the team, because you very rarely drop the captain. So I don't think he will go with Varane and Lindelof. That's just my opinion. I think he will play Maguire, because he come out and obviously backed him in the press conference today and said he's the captain, he'll stay captain at least till the end of the season. I think Maguire will play. But yeah, it's certainly you know, Lindelof's form has certainly given the manager headaches, as shown by putting him in.
No, I think you hit the nail on the head there. Dropping the captain will have it will have a bigger effect and a ripple effect within the team, you know, because there will obviously be players that are loyal to the captain. And, you know, we also have to add in the fact that it's Manchester United. You know, it makes news 10 times over, regardless of what's happening, you know, regardless of how small the news is. But I just don't see Maguire getting dropped anytime soon. But that doesn't mean that I would pick him. I just don't see it happening. And you know, I think we all thought that it was going to be Varane and Maguire for the whole season. Here's me and you talking about that it should be Varane and Lindelof, which is mental. But that's, you know, players just, I mean, you know better than anyone, players, you know, they have their downs and they have their ups. And I think Lindelof is just very, very steady at the moment. He really is. And he's definitely, for me, he's the first name on the sheet in that partnership. I would just, you know, you've hit the nail on the head. The ripple from dropping a captain is far more than just, you know, dropping someone else. And I suppose tomorrow, you know, obviously we got Atletico Madrid away. He more than likely will go with those two pairings. Real quickly, Wan-Bissaka came into the team on Sunday. Ideal conditions for him, because he loves a sliding tackle. You know, sometimes his sliding tackle start at the halfway line and he connects on the 88-yard box. I've never seen a player as good as him with his timing. Maybe Paul McGrath, but Paul McGrath would stay on his feet. But Wan-Bissaka is the best tackler I've seen in the Premier League in a long, long time. Risky starting him tomorrow?
It depends on how he's recovered. I think he got a chance to start him, because, you know, you're going away from home in the Champions League. First and foremost, you're going to have to defend well, and I think he is, like you just said, one-on-one defending. He's maybe the best in the league. Can't remember anyone getting the better of him in a game, especially over the course of 90 minutes. Can't remember anyone really ever getting past him, really, because his legs are so long. Like you say, he's got them slide tackles. His timing's so good. So yeah, I think he might start just because you're going away from home. Atletico Madrid are probably historically under Simeone quite a defensive team, but you're still going to have moments in the game where you're going to need to defend. I think they'll want to go. Well, I think you always want to go into games keeping clean sheets, but you're going away from home in Europe. If they can come back with a clean sheet, that'll stand them in really good stead. Obviously for the return leg. So yeah, I think for his defensive attributes, I think he's got a really strong chance of starting the game.
As a centre back yourself and a defender for all of your professional career, I believe. Would you prefer a good sliding tackle or just a well positioned tackle from a Paul McGrath standpoint? Are you a Wan-Bissaka, or would you prefer to?
It's always a better feeling if for the big sliding tackle. It's obviously a bit more risky that you can get it nick past you. I think probably a centre back, so you probably have to get them the reading in the game and the timing more than a full back who can slide. And so if you miss time as a centre back, it's usually a goal.
Yeah.
But there's no better feeling than full bell last ditch sliding tackle, and the whole crowd give a roar, and that's just an unbelievable feeling. Really, it's like a goal for the defender that day. So yeah, no, that's better, but it's obviously more risky, So you have to just whatever comes at the time.
Yeah, I think, like I said, I think Wan-Bissaka, he just loves a sliding tackle. And I'd say when he looked out onto that pitch and seeing those pools of water, he thought, today is my day. Today is my day. Ideal conditions. Scott, just to wrap it up, happy with Rangnick? I mean, we're 14, 15, 16 games in. He's only been beaten once. You would actually be forgiven for thinking that stat wasn't true because of the doom and gloom around Manchester United, but he has only been beaten once. Yeah, we've had like 6 draws. I think we have 8 wins, so he's been there for like about 15 games. I think it's the draws that have really stood out more so than anything else because they've been poor draws, really poor performances. Right now, 15, 16 games in, what would you give Wreck-It Ralph out of 10?
I think you would always want more. I think, like you say, there's it's more the performances that you look at and you're thinking, I'm just not really seeing much difference or much progress. Hopefully, maybe in the last couple we have, like we spoke about earlier. And I just think the biggest thing in that is when he first got the job. I remember me and you speaking, and the fixture list was so he couldn't have asked. I remember we said he couldn't have asked for a better run of games. And then when you don't really make the most of that and take advantage of that, it's like, you're going to have some tough games coming up. I think you got to be pleased in terms of the fact that, you got to realise where Man United are at this point, and it is still going to be a couple of years before the challenge of the titles, and there's a serious, obviously rebuild coming on, and they almost pressed the restart button when they sacked Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. So they've come in with this new, philosophy, this new way of doing things, or this new mindset that this is the way we're going to progress forward. So, it was never going to you don't just click your fingers and these things just happen naturally. They do take time. I just think the disappointment was the fixture list, the games. So on paper, we know it's never as easy as that, but it was so kind. You couldn't have wished for a better fixture list, really.
Yeah.
So that's the only disappointment I've got. You knew, being in football, things take time and messages take time to be ingrained into players, and then that transforms onto the pitch in terms of the performances. So it's never going to happen overnight, but when you actually read that stats out and you think 1 defeat, it's not too bad really. It's more the performances in the draw.
Yeah.
I think it's a slight disappointment, but like you say, he's obviously got a firm grip on the club now. He's got he's seeing the players all day, every day. So whether he takes next year, I don't think he will be the manager next season, but he obviously has a good information, and he'll select the next manager based on what he sees and what he thinks. So I do think the club's in a decent place.
Final question. Paul Pogba's contract runs out at the end of the season. He looks like a player that's looking for a new contract. I'd definitely give him a thumbs up over the past couple of games. We all know that he has this, God-given talent. We see it every time he plays for France. We've seen it at UB. It just hasn't really worked out at Manchester United over the past 6 years. That said, the past month or so, he's been playing really, really well. I have my own opinion. I want to get your opinion on it. Paul Pogba, do we offer him a new contract? Doesn't look like many clubs are going to offer him the money that he's looking for. Do we offer him a new contract, or do we just say, you know what, we've tried it for 6 years, it's not working, let's move on?
Well, I think that'll be a major discussion between Pogba, Ralph Rangnick, and the potential new manager. I think that'll be, whoever it is. Do they see him in his plans? Rangnick now will have seen him firsthand, and he'll think. I'm sure he'll have a huge decision. If it was me, I'm probably, listen, I played with Paul. I know Paul well. He was in my youth team, and he'd done amazing things at Juventus. He's won the World Cup with France, so who could I be to even say anything about? I feel a bit embarrassed even commenting about what he's achieved in the game, Serie A titles, but I think it's similar to what you said earlier. It's more of a hope, and you're thinking, when's he going to finally click into this complete midfield player? Because you look at him, he's 6'4". He can run up and down, box, but he's got them big strides. His range of passing. He can score goals when he wants to. He can put a shift in, but it's just not worked for him. He's constantly getting criticised. Every time he makes a mistake, it's blew up from fans, social media, pundits, and sometimes rightly so. You just always want that because it's in there. You always just want that little bit more. I don't think it would be a huge loss to the club if he leaves, because obviously he's missed large parts of the season anyway.
Yeah.
If Man United were to get Bellingham and Rice, I don't think you're going to miss Pogba, really. If that's your midfield too for the start of next year with Fernandes in front, that would be for me. That would be the dream. Whether he can make that happen, who knows? But I would be probably, again, finances come into it. The money they paid for him, the salary they've been paid for him. Can they just let him walk for nothing? Are they going to get a fee for him if they give him a new contract? Probably not. He's made now. So there's all these things that to take into consideration, really. And like I say, I think Rangnick will have a huge say. I think if they could sign him, if they know that there's not that much interest elsewhere in terms of probably PSG, Real Madrid, if they know that clubs aren't queuing up to snap him up and they could get him on a lower salary, will his ego accept that with his agent? I don't see it, but it's a huge decision because he's on a fortune. Obviously, he's on big money. It'll be an interesting one, actually, very, very interesting, because that would be a second time they've let him walk for nothing, and they paid 96 million to get him back. So will the board have a say? And they say, listen, we can't lose this player for nothing. We've already done it before. We don't want to embarrass ourselves. And there's a lot more that goes into it, Dave, sometimes than just performances on the pitch.
I just, the last thing I want to say, for me, I think we should just move past Paul Pogba. I think, he's given me 6 years of, oh my God, the hope is killing me here. I just, as you grow up through, I obviously played football when I was a kid, all the way up until, my mid-20s, before the beer took over. And you always come up against teams or certain players that are just too good. They're just too good, and they just glide through games. I'm sure you've seen many, many of those players that are just, when you play against teams that are not so good, that player just looks invincible. Paul Pogba should look like that player against a vast majority of teams that we play in the Premier League, and that's no disrespect to those teams. It's just that the Juventus Paul Pogba and the France Paul Pogba, he should be going to the manager and going, I'm not playing against Watford today. This is way below. I'm just too good. And we should be going, he's right. He's just way too good. But in those games, he gets buried. He just disappears. And that's the reason why I feel that we should just move on from him. I just don't think it's going to happen. You get what I'm trying to say? There's always one.
He's 29. And for all his good attributes, one of the biggest attributes you need is all the top players is consistency. And as we're saying, he hasn't got that consistency of playing at that level like he plays for France every week for Man United. That's. Do you think
it's down to dedication as well? And before you answer that, here's the reason why I ask. There was an article in the newspaper over here the other day about a former player that played with. It was actually Joe Cole. He played with Eden Hazard, I think, in Belgium or France or Belgium, I think it was, for a while. And he said that he would have been better than Messi and Ronaldo if he had the dedication of Messi and Ronaldo. I mean, is this a case whereby Pogba's just I'm not, you know what I'm saying? Like we hear
Yeah.
these stories about Ronaldo and Messi that, Ronaldo's an absolute freak. He gets up at 1 o'clock in the morning to jump into an ice bucket because that's just his routine. And this was the type of thing that Joe Cole was talking about. Is this a case with Paul Pogba? And I'm bringing that point about in teams like Watford and Burnley and Southampton, they should be terrified about playing him because he's going to make a show of them, but he never does. Is it down to dedication? Is it down to he's just not up for it?
I mean, we don't have possibly, but we don't know because we're not seeing what he does off the pitch. We're not seeing what he does at home. We're not seeing the training ground. The biggest thing for me is, the Messis and Ronaldos are freaks, especially Ronaldo. If everyone was as dedicated as Ronaldo, it's a unique. That's almost a skill or an attribute to be that dedicated. But I think Pogba's one. It's just consistency. That's just as important as. That's such a big attribute to be a top player. And like you say, time and time again, when you're saying you're hoping he plays a couple of good games, he scored an unbelievable goal, and you think, and then he'll have a couple of games where you just don't see him, or he's making mistakes, and you're thinking, come, you know that it's there because you've just done it for 2 or 3 games. But if you haven't got I think it's more of a mentality than a dedication. I think to go and do it again and again and churn out performance week in, week out.
No, I definitely think for me, it's definitely you know what? We've tried it for 6 years. We just got to cut our losses here. We just got to move them on. We got to move on from Paul Pogba. I don't even know who the answer is. I know everyone wants Declan Rice. I don't think we're going to, I just don't know whether West Ham are going to sell to Manchester United at a price that can make a deal happen. West Ham, I don't think have to sell. You don't really have to. He's kind of at a really good age where they know, hey, we've got 3 or 4 years. If he's injury free, we've got 3 or 4 years of a window to sell him at 3 digits. So we don't have to sell him today. And we'll probably get what we want. But then again, you could go down the road like Harry Kane. All of a sudden, 2/3 of the season so far, he's been absolutely pants. He got a couple of good goals the weekend. Maybe that's going to kickstart, but that's the risk you take, isn't it? That you end up with a player that Man City were partly offered 150 million for him. And then you think, in January, City probably wouldn't have even paid half of that for him. So that's the risk you take. So for me, I would definitely move on from Paul Pogba. It's unfortunate. I wanted it to happen. I loved it when he came back. But I think for us, we just need to draw a line in the sand and move on. I don't think giving him a new contract is going to do anything. I don't think he's all of a sudden going to turn into the player that he is for France. I just don't think it's working. I think we hear all these things about, he needs a world-class midfielder around him. He needs this around him. No, he doesn't. If he's world-class, he doesn't need players around him to be world-class as well. In fact, it should show how much better he is than everyone else if he is the world-class player in that midfield, which, Fred is running him close these days, especially with that Giggsy-like goal against Juventus at the weekend there against Leeds. So, my Fred tattoo is not going on my arm yet, but, he's getting closer. He's getting closer. Scott, I want to wrap up now, but tell us a little bit more. Who's up next for Wellington?
So we play on Sunday against Western Sydney Wanderers, who are a big club. They've got a beautiful stadium, Combank Stadium. I think they're the only Australian team that have won the Asian Champions League, which is obviously the continent that they're in. I think they're not having a great start to the season. They just lost a manager, a Scottish guy actually, called Carl Robinson, earlier on the season. We're in good form. I think we're a form team of the league at the minute. We are doing really well. I've been here 6 games, played 4. We've won 4, drew 2. So we're unbeaten in 6. So we're going along nice. We're playing some really good football. We're pretty solid defensively as well. So we're looking forward to it. It's a big game. Like I say, should be a good atmosphere, good stadium. They're a well-supported club, and obviously we're based here in Sydney, so it's not a long one for us to travel to. So we're looking forward to it. And then the week after, we play Melbourne City, I think, who are the reigning champions. So it's a really good couple of games for us coming up, and ones. But me personally, this is the reason you came here to play in these big good games. So I can't wait to get going in them.
Enjoying your time there?
Yeah, loving it, mate. Loving every minute of it. Just the way of life, the football is exactly what I expected, and probably better really than what I thought. Every game's on TV, so you have that buzz going up to the games. The crowds are a bit down because of COVID, but the stadiums are really nice. The facilities, training facility, all the stuff that goes with being a footballer are top notch really. The weather, as you know, makes a big difference to your life and your mood and how good you feel. And yeah, no, it's been great. I've been loving every minute of it.
The A-League, last question. A-League, where would you put it in comparison to English League? Are we Championship, maybe the bottom half of the Premier League? What are we looking at here?
I would put it from some of the middle Championship to top of League One. And when I'm talking like Wigan, Sunderland, these big clubs, I would put it that. But a lot of people have asked me this, Dave, and it's quite difficult. So this is my take on it. Because of a lot of factors of weather, pitches, facilities, a lot of players who I've played with in the past, especially in League One, would really struggle to play in the A-League, even Championship players, because of it's a very technical, tactical. It's almost like a European style of football. And there's players in the A-League who I've played with or played against, and you watch the games in the evenings, who technically are top, but they would struggle to play in England because of the physicality and the way the game's played. It's very, very different. When you see foreign players come over to England, and it just doesn't work out for them for numerous reasons. That's my take on it, because loads of people, friends and ex-players I played with it. What's it like? What's the standard like? Where does it compare? Exactly what you just said. And I would say, as a general, it's probably the higher end of League One, middle to Championship. But it's very, very different. Styles different. So like I say, it's a lot more about possession, patterns of play, movement, keeping the ball, technical skills. Whereas England is a lot more 100 miles an hour, direct, get balls in the box, play percentages. So there is differences, but no, it's a really good level. Really, I've been pleasantly surprised at how good the standard of the players are.
Well, as you know, we follow your career down there, and best of luck for the rest of the season. We want to get you a couple more goals on the scoreboard, to catch up with Ronaldo for this season. So congratulations on your first goal. I was really happy to see that. It looks like you got a really, really good team down there. You got some very good players.
Oh, yeah.
And so for anyone that hasn't subscribed yet, please hit the subscribe button. Follow us on. We've got the many different social media channels that we're on, and if you're listening back, give us a like, give us some comments. We get Scott on whenever our planets align, and we try and get on the same time zone ish. So I know it's early in the morning for you, so I do appreciate it. Again, thanks everyone for listening in. Thanks for all the questions, and we'll be back on with Scott hopefully in the next week.